Thank you. We are, who says we are bad Malaysians? I think we are very, very good Malaysians. Look, we are 45 minutes behind time. Malaysians are, bad Malaysians only start things on time, 10 o'clock. But we are good. Now, I do not know why I have been invited to talk upon this subject as if I am an expert on Kame Sumicha Chara Veramani Sikha Padam Samadhyam. This is the third of the precepts, and it means that I undertake to abstain from sex. That's very, very rough meaning. That is not what it really means. It's a whole area of mind control and body control. The Buddha has said, if there was another human passion as powerful as the sexual urge, there would be no hope for enlightenment for human beings. What he means is that of all the passions that we have, the sexual urge is the strongest of all these urges. And this is the one thing that keeps us from gaining enlightenment and all that it involves. Now, I have said this many, many times. Man has three great needs for survival. He needs food, he needs shelter, and he needs sex. Now, you will notice that food is necessary for your survival as an individual. Okay? Shelter is necessary because if you don't have protection from the wind, the rain, you will have problems. So, food, shelter, sex. Now, food and shelter you must have. If you don't have either of these, there's a possibility you will die. But I have not heard of anyone who has died because he has not had sex. This is one thing we can do without, which is why the Buddha, in his wisdom, has advised his monks to be celibate. That means to refrain from sex. But he has never told them to refrain from food. In fact, the Buddha did try before his enlightenment to refrain from food, and he became so thin that he couldn't concentrate. And he took food, and his 5 friends left him, but he gained enlightenment because he took, in Buddhism, the middle path. Now, some Hindus, among them Mahatma Gandhi, although they are married, they refrain from sex as part of their personal discipline. Now, Buddhists have 2 sets of laws, one for the monks and one for the layman. A lot of people who don't understand Buddhism follow the rules for the monks as laymen. Now, this is wrong. Lay people can do a lot of things that monks are not allowed to do. Not allowed. In Buddhism, there is no such thing as not allowed. Voluntarily, I refuse to do. That is different from thou shalt not. You must not. You must not covet thy neighbor's wife. That means you must not go running around with your neighbor's wife. In Buddhism, it is not you must not. I don't want to. Very big difference. Okay? Now, food is necessary for the individual. Shelter is necessary for the individual. Sex is necessary for the race. For the whole human race. All human beings need to have sex because without sex you cannot make little human beings. Yeah? You can't put them in a machine, for example. It might come, but so far, no. Okay, now, this is the basic problem. You see? We need sex in order to procreate, in order to make other human beings, because this is our inborn instinct for survival. Because we want to continue to live on and on and on. Even if we die, at least my Samara Vikrama name, that's why I must have a son. If my wife didn't give me a son, I beat her up until she gives me a son. You see? This is happening in all Asian societies. Why? This is to make sure that your race, the human race, is continued. Now, this is where Buddhism comes in. Why do you want your race to continue? Because of this idea of a permanent body. I exist, I am me, this is mine. You see? Now, therefore we want to continue. Now in Buddhism we say that if you have understanding, then you will realize that what you call is your body is not there at all. It is just an illusion. And modern science has proved this very, very clearly, that if you look at yourself through a microscope, what will you see? Can you find your soul if you look through a microscope? No, you see little things, and we call them germs or worms or cells. That's all that we are. And we analyze the cells even further, we are just energy. That is why when you die, people can see your ghost, because this energy is extended a bit further. It stays on after your body has died. You see? And you see the ghost. Okay. Now, there's a very famous English monk called Bhikkhu Sangharakshita. He has said that the greatest con trick that was played on human beings by nature is sex. Now, consider this. If not for the pleasure of sex, who would go around making babies? Think about this. Why make a baby? You make a baby, it comes into the world, it's crying, in the night, you got to feed it, you got to clothe it, then it grows up, you got to worry about it, you got to buy insurance, you got to pay $40,000 sending them to PJCC or some other place, then you send them overseas, bring back, and then they say, I never asked you to do all this one. You see? So, in order for the race to continue, nature, because nature is concerned with survival, nature has made the act of sex very pleasurable. But as Buddhists, we do not want the race to continue, because being born again means problems, means suffering. So I abstain from sex, not I, Vijaya, but the Buddhist monk who has renounced, because he realizes that he is not doing anyone a favor by creating another human being. Ultimate question, what if everybody had no sex and there were no more children coming in the next century? Very good. The only person who will be unhappy is Dr. Mahathir with his 70 million people tadapa. But otherwise, this is ideal. But it will never happen. The Buddha knew this, that it is really impossible to expect that the whole world will give up this most important urge within us. Now, we in modern society are having even greater problems about fighting this sexual urge because of mass media. Yeah? Do you know that I've been told that in Western countries, if you don't begin to date by about 11 or 12 years of age, people will be surprised, be wondering what's wrong with you. You see, it already begins very early that this sexual urge has to be, if you don't take part in sex, you must be something not quite normal. You see? Now, this is important for us to realize, that sex is part and parcel of our belief that we are permanent, that we are people, that we exist when we don't. And it's the strongest of the craving forces that make us go on living. So we have to fight the urge for sex. Now, sex is connected with craving for self-existence because it is an ignorant view of self, a wrong view. Yeah? Sex is a manifestation of the belief in an ego. When we have sex, it is we are satisfying the body, when in reality the body does not exist. Okay? Now, sex, according to Buddhism, is not dirty. Now, we have been trained to think a lot by Christian thinking, Christian Middle East thinking. Yeah? The Semitic religions, Christianity, Islam, have always regarded sex as something dirty, something wrong, that the ideal is not to have sex. We do not believe, this is why they talk about virgin births, that, you know, if you are found sleeping or even talking to someone who's not your mother or your sister, you get whacked 3-6 times in the backside. You see? We don't have this, because we say that this urge for sex arises from ignorance. Not dirty, not a dirty mind. Yeah? It's a natural feeling, it's a natural emotion to want to have sex. But it is akusala kamma. What is akusala kamma? We do not have sin in Buddhism. Only we have unskillful action. What does this mean? Now, our ideal is to become arahants, become saints. How do you become a saint? Completely purify the mind. The mind becomes zero of thought. Okay? No thinking. No evil thoughts take place in your mind. Okay. Now, to get this zero in your mind, you must remove all kinds of thoughts. Okay? Now, sex is merely another one of these thoughts. It all happens in the mind. Okay? When it happens in the mind, then you go and do the action. Okay? Sex happens in the mind. Theft, if you steal also, it happens in the mind first. Okay? But you do not, if you take part, even if you rape, that horrible case that we heard recently about that little girl who was raped by this man. Now, this man will not go to hell forever and ever and ever and ever, according to Buddhism. According to Buddhism, he did a terrible thing. He broke the last. He drank liquor. Okay? It was the liquor that caused unmindfulness. The unmindfulness led to his raping and killing this girl. So his first crime was this. Now, he will be punished for his unmindfulness. He will be punished for having caused the death of this girl. But when it's a very, very serious crime, when he has finished paying, habis bank account itu jadi hitam sekali lagi, free. Then he comes back. Devadatta, who tried to kill the Buddha, was swallowed, and he is now in hell, but not for eternity. After a long, I got 15 minutes more, long time, he will have paid for his crime of wanting to kill the Buddha. But when it is finished, it is finished. A crime is not forever. Okay? So in Buddhism, it is merely an unskillful action, a stupid action done by a person who is ignorant. Okay? So sex basically is not sex like greed for food. You're greedy for sex, you're greedy for food, you're greedy for power, you're greedy for money, and you're greedy for all of these things. Yeah? They're all of the same level. Okay? They're just, if you're greedy for all these things, you have craving. If you have craving, you get born again. If you get born again, you suffer. Okay, you want to stop suffering? Don't get born again. You don't want to get born again? Stop craving. You want to stop craving? Don't think about sex. How do you not think about sex? Think about flowers. Think about other things. Your mind, this much concerned with sex. How about thinking about a mathematical problem? While you're thinking of a mathematical problem, you have that much space less to think about sex. Okay? Think about charity, much less space, and so on and so on. The more kusala kammas you develop in your mind, compassion, love, pity, all these are good thoughts. The more you develop good thoughts, the less time. There is a phrase in English which says, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So the more you fill your mind with good thoughts, the less time you have for akusala, unskillful actions. Okay? Now, every human being who is born has 3 levels. This is Buddhism. The animal level, the human level, the divine level. Okay? The animal level is the one that craves for sex. Huh? This is the lowest, the basest level. Now, all of us have both. Sometimes we think about sex, sometimes we think about other things, good things. Okay. Now, our ideal is to reach to the divine level. Okay? So reduce thoughts about sex, rise towards the divine level where sex becomes unimportant. Not everybody has the same sexual urge. The more animal of us have the stronger. The guy who killed this little girl is more animal than you. But if you drink and break the next precept, you will become animal. You will have unmindfulness. Okay, and it goes on. But you will notice, nobody is there waiting to punish you. You know, waiting to, you have sex, you go, hell. You are not so much sex, you only thought about it, you go to hell 5 days. We don't have that. You see? It's all inside, and it can be clean. According to Buddhism, the human being is basically good. He's basically good. His impurities make him do wrong things based on ignorance. Teach him the right things and he will respond correctly. The Buddha believed in this very strongly. The Buddha never condemned anybody, not even Devadatta. That's why we talk about wrong view. When we have wrong view of the body, we think sex is important. We look at Alexis Carrington and we think she is important because of sex. Because we have wrong view. We see those things, nice things in front of her and we say, oh, very good. Wrong view. You see, adjust your TV set. Now, in Christianity, sex is part of God's plan. God made man. And therefore, ultimately, God is responsible for everything that a man does. You see? So if a man gets married and he has children, this is part of God's plan. As a creature made by God. In Buddhism, nobody made you. You made yourself. How did you make yourself? By action. You see, your actions are like when you throw a stone in the water, the ripples go like that. You see? So you created that. You create action, you create karma. Karma means action. You create action, you create karma. You create karma, you create rebirth. You create rebirth, you create problems for yourself. You want to reduce? Go backwards. So no action. So if you do not create action through sex, then you do not create craving. No craving, no desire to be reborn. No desire to be reborn, no suffering. Okay? Now, because of this, Buddhists also do not suffer from guilt. Should not. I mean, if you went and had sex with somebody's wife, okay? This is bad in itself because, number one, you are cheating on somebody else. That is bad. Cheating on somebody. Okay? You are giving in to your animal pleasure. This is bad. Okay? But you did it because you did not understand your body, what you are made of. You are just illusion. You think that this is all permanent. Arising from that ignorance, you committed all these crimes. Okay, you made it, you realize it. Next time don't do it. Don't do it because you are afraid God will punish you. No. You don't do it because you have understanding. You know that by doing these kind of things, you are stuck to the earthly existence. You get born again and again and again. You see? You go and have sex with somebody's wife 5 minutes. Then the husband finds out, comes to you with a gun. What use was that pleasure? You go and rob a bank. The police kept chasing you. What use is the pleasure? So if you realize this, you won't get into a mess. So we abstain from sex in the wrong sense. The third precept, from understanding. I undertake the precept. I voluntarily. Bukan sebab aku takut polis datang. You see? But I undertake because I don't want to. I know it is not the real pleasure. I know that it does not bring happiness. It brings involvement. And you get involved with other people. Okay? Sex takes place in the mind. We are always asked, why is it Buddhists told don't kill animals and yet they eat meat? Same thing. Because what is put on the plate in front of you is not life. It is that much protein, carbohydrate, whatever. If you eat it as protein, carbohydrate, it does not matter what shape it takes. Similarly, sex. If you think that sex is the center of your life, this is wrong. Okay? But if you take sex as something that is part of every other emotion, like greed, like hunger for power, whatever, okay. Take sex as one of the things in your life, not the major part of your life. Until you are ready to renounce. Once you renounce, you do not want to take part in it. Okay? Now, karma, maybe you might speak about it, but it's okay, I've got 3 minutes more. Karma means sensuality. Micchacara, wrong conduct. Wrong conduct towards sensuality, towards pleasing the body. Now, there are 4 factors which must be present for sensual misconduct to be committed. Okay, there must be 4. The forbidden object. You must have this pretty girl. Why am I so chauvinistic? You must have this pretty girl or handsome man. Okay? The mind must think thoughts. You see a pretty girl, she's a pretty girl, habis cerita. But if you see a pretty girl and you take her clothes off in your mind, watch it. thinking misconduct, then you must make the effort to go towards her. And finally, the two bodies must come together. These four together, all done in the wrong way, constitutes the breaking of the precept. Like that guy, you see, first he got drunk, then he thought of the girl, then he broke down the planks, then he entered, he took the girl, he had the sex, and then he suffocated her. So each one of these bears with it its own karma. You see? So the base of that was drinking, liquor, unmindfulness, not being aware. You don't need to drink to be unmindful. You see? So even if you don't drink, sometimes your urge is so strong, you go on. So this is why we say, don't take liquor, don't take anything that will, or don't read dirty books. Don't watch television that excites you. If you are strong, if you can watch it, like if I look at a piece of stone, I don't get excited. Can you watch a dirty blue film without getting excited? Some people can. Nothing. There is no sin. The sin is when you get excited through your mind. Okay. Now, it is also encouraged, this sex, misconduct towards sex thing in marriage, because too much of Western civilization, the media, and when I say Western civilization, I also mean Japan, Thailand, all this, which emphasizes, which has commercialized sex so much that we feel that without sex, you are not normal. Now, according to the Buddhist way of thinking, sex is just one of. Okay. So if you want to put it aside, you're still quite normal. So don't be afraid. Yeah, if you don't, you know, the guy, the macho guy who goes to the bar, that girl, I ask like that, only she'll come. No. Yeah, he's only talking. You can quite happily tell him, no, I feel nothing towards her. I've controlled myself. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I am not JR. Okay? And many marriages today break down. I'm finished my last line. Many marriages today break down because too many people think that sex is the center of marriage. Sex is not the center of marriage. The center of marriage is understanding, allowing the other person to breathe, to have his or her own life, respect for the other person's individuality. Yeah? Now you will see lots of young people get married based on sex. And then they cannot have sex breakfast, noon and night. Okay? Then what happens? Okay, let us talk. Talk lah. You talk first lah. I talk lah. I don't want to talk. You talk. There is nothing to talk about. There is no understanding. You see, this is why we say the older people get through a marriage. The first few years are all fighting. Yeah? They fight in the morning, they make love in the night. Okay? But as they grow older and the need for sex goes further into the background, understanding develops among older people. And then marriage becomes rich and mellow, like old wine. I don't know if I should use that expression in this temple, but what is it that is safe that needs to grow old before you can take it? Nothing. A sake also cannot drink. But it has to mellow. But you will notice that the deepest relationships are not centered around sex. The deepest relationships are centered around respect, having mutual interests, allowing once in a while the other party to go away, and for both parties to breathe. Yeah? If you say you don't know anybody, you cannot talk to that man, you cannot talk to this man, you are my wife, jealousy begins, fighting begins, all of this begins. So, in conclusion, you will see that in Buddhism, we say guard against the misuse of sex. That is what it means by kame sumichachara veramani sikha padang samadhyami. I cannot finish this sentence happy whatever. Thank you very much.
The ennobler means what is actually the positive aspect of the precept. When Uncle Vijaya talked to you about the precept, well, he is actually outlining what in fact you are not supposed to do. And well, he did it in a very light-hearted way. And in fact, the way he explained it is very easy for us to discuss on a very sensitive issue. In fact, this precept, sometimes it's not easy to discuss in the temple because of, you know, the meanings that are behind it. Well, anyway, I must discuss with you now the ennobler, which is the positive aspect, right? Sometimes it's easier to talk about what not to do, right? What you should leave out, rather than what, in fact, you should do. In our training, for example, in schools, yeah, we are usually told what not to do, right? And very seldom we have been explained what exactly is it we must do to replace what we are not supposed to do. Okay, and so now this ennobler is for discussing what in fact you have to do to lead a very happy married life, to lead a very moral, a very respectable, noble way of life as a human being. Okay? Now, the underlying purpose of this third precept is to prevent disunity and to promote mutual trust. That is, right, if you were to be married, the husband and the wife must have this mutual trust. They must have this mutual understanding that both of them will not stray outside their marriages. Because once the partner finds out that the other person has betrayed him or her, there is bound to be a lot of unhappy feeling. There's bound to be a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, right? And this is what this precept is in fact trying to do, is to keep all that pain, all that suffering, the hurt, down to a minimum, as much as possible. If we actually see a marriage, what is a marriage? A marriage is two people. In fact, they start off being strangers. They don't know each other. Right? Two people coming together and trying to make a life for themselves, for two of them. And these two people might have very different backgrounds, you know. The man might be from a very different background from his wife. But they take it upon themselves to create, right, to live a life that two people can share. And because there is already so many problems that can crop up, I'm sure you know, those of you who are married, I'm sure you know what sort of problems can crop up in a normal, healthy marriage. There are already so many things. The differences between two people are enough to put the strain on a marriage. Like Uncle Vijay said, the first few years of a marriage is very difficult, because it is the time when these two people are trying to lay the groundwork, to lay the mutual understanding that is to take them to the end of their lives, right? And as such, it is a very sacred, right, very important understanding between two people. So that's what exactly it is, an understanding between two people. Now, when you add a third element, when you add somebody extra, it becomes a triangle, right? And this does not balance. A triangle does not balance when you have a relationship meant for two, right? And when, with the intervention of a third person, the unity between the two undergoes a lot of strain, resulting in bitter hatred and revenge. In this sort of relationship, one puts a lot of trust on the other, right? The husband puts a lot of trust on his wife that she will remain faithful to him. And knowing that she will, he can go about in his daily activities with a very peaceful mind. He can go to the office, right? He can go to his golf club for golf. He can go swimming and do whatever he wants to do if he has that trust. But sometimes we see that certain couples don't have that trust. Every now and then he'll be ringing, he'll be ringing up. Oh, what are you doing now, right? For example, in Britain, for example, a very common joke about infidelity, the personality, the person whom is most joked about is the milkman. Right? He comes very early in the morning when the husband is not awake. And so when it comes to infidelity, the first person that they suspect is the milkman. Okay? So, if somebody else comes into the picture, right, the unity between the two is disrupted. They cannot go about thinking that they can come back to a happy face. They can come back to a happy home, right? And once jealousy is injected into the mind, it is very difficult to take that jealousy away. But we know that, sometimes we hear that the man, right, is unfaithful to his wife. And when the wife finds out, right, and he says to her, oh, I'll never do it again. Now, please forgive me. Take me back. Right? And an understanding wife will, of course, try to take him back. But the seed of the mistrust, the seed of the jealousy is already implanted. It is very difficult for a person to completely remove that distrust. Right? So much so that wherever he goes, maybe he's back late a bit, right? She also begins to suspect him, even though he is not doing anything suspicious. Okay? Now it is, in fact, in Buddhism, it is accepted that once you find a partner, right, this partner should be your partner for life. That is, you should be faithful to this partner. And so as such, from the Buddhist text, from the Buddhist teachings, it is accepted that one person finds one singular mate, one singular partner, right? But of course, in other countries, for example, the Middle Eastern countries, it is natural for them to have more than one partner. That is, for example, the man will have more than one wife. Right? You know that in Islam, they are, of course, allowed 4 wives. And the point is that if they have 4 wives, they must treat each of these wives with equality. That they must give equal love, equal respect, and in fact equal material benefits to each of these wives. Now this, I think, in my opinion, this is rather difficult, because it is very difficult for a man to say to his 4 wives, oh, I love all of you equally, right? At one time he might love one more than the other, right? Especially if she is young, right? And she is the one that bears him the son. Right? The uncles, Vijay said, you've got to have a son, especially in our Asian societies. This man will, of course, love her more. And therefore, it is very difficult, if not impossible, for a man to have 4 wives and love all of them equally. And this princess, who was to become his wife, was with him for many, many lifetimes. For example, he once told a story, a Jataka story, when he returned to Kapilavatthu after attaining enlightenment. He was invited back by his father, the king, to Kapilavatthu. And the princess Yasodhara, right, after hearing that her husband, the prince, had already renounced, she did exactly like he did. When she found that he was eating 1 meal a day, she only ate 1 meal a day. When she found that he had given up all the beautiful clothes and wore the clothes of a monk, right, she also gave up all her beautiful clothes, all her jewelry, all her finery, and she started wearing very plain, ordinary clothes. And when she found that he was sleeping on the floor, as an ascetic, right, he cannot find a nice bed to sleep on all the time. So when she found that he was sleeping on the floor, she also slept on the floor. Imagine, in the palace, right, with all this luxury, she slept on the floor because she was faithful to the memory of her husband, to the idea of her husband. So when Prince Siddhartha became an ascetic and had gained the enlightenment, he came back to Kapilavatthu, and he came and visited Princess Yasodhara, and Princess Yasodhara paid his respects to him. Although, after he had left the palace when he was a prince, many other suitors came to ask for her hand, because she was still young and beautiful, right? She was only 29 years old when the prince left. And so others came and asked for her hand. Other handsome, young, powerful princes came to ask for her hand, but she rejected all of them. And therefore, her faithfulness, her fidelity to him is an example to all Buddhist women. And so the Buddha told this story. And this story is known as the Chanda Kinnara Jataka, right? A nice story which I will tell you now. The story is like this. Once in their previous lifetimes, both of them were together. And they were two devas, right? A deva and a devi. And so the Buddha was in fact the male deva. His name was Chanda. And his wife was Princess Yasodhara in that lifetime. And they were very happy living in the Himalaya mountains. They had a very nice time, and they played around in those beautiful mountains, which was their home. One day they decided to go down to the valley to see what was happening in the valley where human beings lived. So they went down, right, the two of them. And it so happened that when they were down in the valley, a king happened to see the wife, the female deva. And he immediately arose in him the attachment, the lust for this female deva. And so he plotted to kill the male one, that is, the bodhisattva. So what he did was, he found the most poisonous poison available, he put it on his arrowhead, and when the two devas came down again, he shot the male deva. Okay? And he was laying there, dying. Okay? So the king came and spoke to the female deva, said, look, your husband is already dying. Right? I am so much alive, I want you. Why don't you give him up? Look at him dying over there, you know. Why don't you come and be my wife? But the female deva, she was so faithful to him that even when he was dying, right, she refused to give him up. Okay? And then eventually the king saw that there was no chance, no use for him to keep pleading. He went away. And as the female deva lay there crying in front of her husband, the king of the gods, called Sakka, heard the tears, and he came down, and with his psychic powers, he was able to make the deva Chanda well again. And after that, they were able to continue their happy life together. And this is a story which was told by the Buddha to the people around, that not just in one lifetime she was faithful to him, but many lifetimes before that. And so it is, I think, natural for us to accept that one partner in a life is enough. Right? Sometimes one partner is already more than you can handle. What more if you take 2, 3, 4? That means you have twice the headaches, right? 3 times the headaches, 4 times the headaches, and sometimes 4 times the mothers-in-law as well. Okay, so what is advised here is for one to be self-controlled in sexual behavior, meaning to restrain oneself from immoral sexual practices. Okay? Immoral sexual practices does not refer only to adultery, but we know that there are all kinds of, very extraordinary, very out of the way, very weird sexual practices that can be practiced by human beings, right? And I had a chance to see this when, in fact, I was in Amsterdam. You know, when I was a student, we were on a field trip to Amsterdam, and going through this place called the Red Light District was very strange because they cater to every kind of sexual kink, right, that you can want. If you want to be beaten by whips, you have beaten by whips, and if you want to wear leather and all kinds of things. So you know that human beings, well, they sometimes want to expand their repertoire, in fact, of sensual pleasures, right? So here, kamesu michachara does not mean just to adultery, okay, right? And those who merely abstain from adultery, but who still do the other kinds of self-indulgence without regard to social acceptability, are said also to defile themselves in a shameful manner. Right? In other religions, right, they say that sex is only for procreation. That is, you want to create children from the sex. But other people don't think that. It is said that in other societies, there are two very different opposing views. For example, in Western society, you once had what was called the puritanical view. That is, all sex was bad, except, right, to have children, and that was allowed. That was the only kind of sex that was allowed. And when you were involved in this sex, you cannot enjoy it. All you have to do is get on with it and get over with it as quickly as you can. Now, the other view is the permissive view. The permissive view is that, oh, to hell with social acceptance. Whenever I see anybody I like, I give it a try, right? And this was very, very rampant, especially during the late 60s, the advocating of free love, make love, not war, right? In fact, they made love and they made babies as well. Okay? So now, what we want to do is to have the middle path. Right? The middle path is the path between pure abstinence and permissiveness all the way. That is, not thinking even whom you are with. And the middle path, in fact, is like, for example, if you want to cross the road, right, when you cross the road, you must look at both sides. You can't cross the road only looking at one side. So when you look on the left, right, and on the right, and you see that the path is clear for you to cross, then you can go over to the other side. And that is taking the middle path. Now, in our terms, it means kamisu michachara. That is, to enjoy the facilities, the physical facilities that are available to us through a very respectable, through a very in a very noble way. That is, we don't go all out to debauch ourselves, right? We don't go all out to really please ourselves every time we feel the urge. Right? There are some people, in fact, I've heard from psychologists, that there are some people who cannot help themselves. Right? When the urge is there, they cannot help themselves. There is no way they can restrain themselves. And that is why, these days, you can see sexual crimes on the rise. Right? When once you only heard of it very seldom, now you can hear it of this type of crimes all the time. And not just, they don't just attack fully grown women, they attack those who are not able to defend themselves, who are not able to fight back. That is 9-year-old children, 7-year-old children. Right? And so you can see that with this kind of letting go, the more we just let go to our animal instincts, the more these kinds of crimes will be on the rise. Right? The more people break the precepts, the more people just give in to their animal behavior, this kind of crimes will never be controlled. Now we get back to right. Okay, like our Uncle Vijay said, the breaking of the precept is not sin as normally accepted. It is termed as an unskillful action. That is, the results that come from these actions are unskillful. And as outlined, there are four stages that you go through in order to fully break this precept. Right? That was outlined just now. And the deeper you go into the fall, right, the more unwholesome, the more suffering the reactions will bring. For example, if you start at the first one, that is, you just know that there is somebody desirable there, okay, then it is the reactions, right, that is, when your craving arises from seeing somebody desirable, is the reaction is not so bad. But once you go to the second one, the third one, and you finally complete the whole act, right, the karma that follows is for sure. Right? If you finish the first to the fourth, right, stages, the karma that follows you is guaranteed to take place. But sometimes, if you just go on the first, the second, and the third, right? Depends how far you go. The karma that follows you sometimes does not take effect due to the fact that you have not truly completed the act. And if the karma is weak, right, and you have a lot of good karma, good reactions supporting you, sometimes this do not even take effect, right? Especially when you are so skillful enough to have attained nibbana, arahantship. These bad karma which are weak, right, not the fully committed ones, sometimes cannot follow you beyond that. Sexual or sensual pleasure is not evil in itself. Right? We all of us, as worldlings, right, putujana, worldlings, those who have not attained even the first stage of sainthood, we have this kind of attraction in us. And it is not evil in itself, right? But it is attachment to it which is unskillful. And it is the same thing when we talk about money. Right? Money is not evil. We use money for good purposes even. But when we are too attached to it, so that the craving, right, multiplies, the craving gets stronger and stronger, that we cannot think properly even then. So it becomes a very unskillful act, right, that will lead us on to even being reborn in the state of the hell world. And therefore, it is good that we practice moderation. Right? The more moderation, the more control we have in our life, the better. Now, in the committing, in the breaking of the fourth precept, the reactions that come with the fourth precept, the third precept, also have to be considered due to its seriousness. Right? When we consider the seriousness, when we break the third precept, the first thing we must know is the virtue of the forbidden object. That is, let's say this person rapes, right? A very virtuous person, a very virtuous lady, right? The seriousness, the consequence of that act is more when this lady is more virtuous. And whether the forbidden person was willing or not, right? If this person was not willing at all, the seriousness is there, right? It becomes even more serious. And the intensity of defilement involved. If the person was beyond control, right, the reaction that comes up is very great. And also the amount of effort made. The more effort you put in to breaking this precept, the worse the reaction will be. That is, if your mind is constantly thinking about breaking the precept, right, you find ways and means, for example, to trick the other person. So you think, oh, maybe my way of doing it is I will take her out for dinner, put her in the mood and all sorts of things. The more you dwell on breaking the third precept, the more serious the reaction will be. Okay? Now we come back to leading a happy married life. That is, the commitment between the husband and the wife. It is said that in the home, there can be found 4 types of pairs of people, right? There is one, you find a female ghost living with a male ghost, right? That is, the husband is like a male ghost, the wife is like a female ghost. They never give an inch to each other. Anytime there is a little bit of trouble, they start fighting, right? They start quarreling, and as such, right, they are like ghosts in the home. There's nothing good about them. They don't think about how to please the other person, how to be playing their role as husband and wife properly. So in this kind of home, you find a male ghost and a female ghost. In some homes, you find a male deva and a female ghost. That is, the man is very good. He is very patient. He accepts, right? And whatever the wife throws at him or hurls at him, all kinds of foul language, he is still very patient. Right? But that is not, in fact, the perfect situation. And on the other hand, in some homes, we find a male ghost living with a female deva. That is, the female is very patient, accepts all kinds of things that the husband does. Even if the husband goes out drinking, goes out womanizing, she still accepts him. And the best kind of home, of course, when we follow all the 5 precepts, is where you can find in the home a male deva and a female deva. That is, both of them take their commitment seriously, right? Whatever good they can do for each other in order to make their relationship more blessed, right? More happy. They are willing to do. And when sometimes it is good for them to be a bit tolerant, right? If the other person sometimes makes a mistake, right? The other partner is more tolerant, and therefore this is the best kind of home to live in. And this is what we, if you are married, right, we should strive for. The home where a male deva lives with a female deva. There are some people, of course, some men, and usually we like to talk about men breaking the third precept, although women are not, are able also to break the third precept. That is because we recognize that the male nature is stronger than the female nature with regard to this. Okay? And so I think that is all there is I have got to say about the third precept. The ennobling thing is, of course, that we must be mindful at all times of the other person's trust upon us. Right? If we are always careful not to mislay the trust, not to break the trust that somebody, our partner, puts on us, and try our best to follow all the advice that the Buddha has given as a married person, we will find that the home that we live in will be very happy. Thank you.
Dear speakers, brothers and sisters in the Dharma, I would like to ask regarding this lawful age. What's the meaning of this lawful age? And secondly, from one of my discussion with Chief Reverend, he said, it seems the Buddha did not give a lawful age as long as a person is still under guardianship of the parents. And suppose a man marry a girl without the permission of the girl's parents, then he breaks the precept. So I would like the speakers to elaborate more on this. Is there a lawful age? And if the person is above the lawful age but still under protection, is he regarded as an improper person?
Thank you. Lawful age. Yes, the lawful age that we take as 18 or 21 is not an Asian lawful age. As long as that, in some ways this is bad for us, because I know in Japanese society, for example, if you're 45 and living with your father who is 70, you are still subservient to the father. So this is something we believe. As Buddhists, we say that you remain father and mother until you die. I cannot say at the age of 21, I've stopped becoming a child to my father. I continue until the relationship is broken by death. Now, there is of course a legal age, not a legal age, a mental age. Now, it is quite possible that at 12 or 13, a child understands all about sex. And this is happening more and more as the world progresses. So a lawful age is not something which can be dictated by law, but it is something in Buddhism that happens in the mind. Some people may be 25 and have the mind of a 10-year-old with regard to sex. It will be very, very innocent. Others can be 12 years old and have the mind of a 45-year-old. I've got lots of stories which I can't tell here regarding that. But so again, lawful age goes back to the mind. Now, how do I find out whether the guy that I'm trying to have an affair with, the girl that I'm trying to have an affair with, is of the lawful age or not? The question is, don't try. Okay, you want to add to that? He's frightened.
All right, no more questions, huh?
Regarding this lawful age, some speakers may feel that the lawful age recognized by the society is a lawful age. And also, in our country, suppose that thing happens, then the parent interfere. It seems under the law, the parent can be charged. And recently, there was one case where the parent, in fact, was charged for disturbing the couple. Anyway, I'm not clear whether this lawful age refers to the age recognized by the society or permitted by the law or not. That is still my doubt. Okay.
We are talking about two things. The spiritual concerns that bother us today and the legal concerns which will bother us outside. Now, it is quite possible that many of the people who have been hanged for so-called crimes against society were not guilty of these crimes from a spiritual point of view. Okay? Now we go back to that case of the guy who killed this girl in a drunken stupor. Now, if you really analyze it, he is not guilty of the murder of the child. Okay? He is guilty of drunkenness. He is guilty, I'm talking as a Buddhist, he is guilty of unmindfulness. But because it was done without premeditation, without planning, without a clear mind, he is not guilty of murder. Now you say that to any judge, and he will jump from his seat. But so you got to get these two clear. Here we are talking about me and my karma. I am not talking about what the government says about me and breaking the law to benefit the large number of people. Man-made laws against karmic, universal, cosmic laws. Okay? This question again is only in my mind. I don't think Chief will agree with me. I don't know. You see? And of course the degree. So when it comes up for judgment, figuratively speaking, when it comes up for judgment, we will start off with, why did you drink? Punish for that, etc., etc., etc. But he is not as much a murderer. He is not a murderer in that sense. He killed, yes. He has to pay for it, yes. But not the degree of murder. My own feeling. Okay? Man-made versus universal cosmic laws. The cannibal who eats another's flesh, is he guilty? By his thinking, he is not. Chief doesn't agree with me on that also. Chief says if you kill, you kill. You have to pay. Guilt or not? Yes. Okay.
I may have a question, but it might be a little bit out of your context. I think in those days there are a lot of controversy on this birth control methods. So what I'd like to know is, what is the Buddhist viewpoint on this?
No problem for the Buddhists.
Well, yes, it's true. As to the practice of birth control, if you practice any kind of a safe method as birth control, you are not in any way breaking the precept. There is no breaking of the precept, right? But when it comes to the question of abortion, then it's in a different ballpark, a different question. Because when we talk about abortion, right, we are talking about breaking the first precept already. Because if there is to be a fetus, if there is to be a life inside the woman's womb, and you get rid of that life, it is just as good as killing anybody else who is already born. So in that respect, we are talking about breaking the first precept. But if you practice all kinds, I'm sure nowadays there are many types of very safe methods of birth control. This has got nothing to do with religion, in fact, right? Religion is only concerned with things as outlined in the 5 precepts. Right? If you want to practice birth control, you cannot come and ask a monk. Right? You have to go to the doctor or the family planner in order to get this kind of advice. But from our point of view, if there is no killing, you have not broken any of the 5 precepts, right? There is nothing wrong. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Just that there are certain conditions that must be fulfilled before a life takes place. Now, there is father, there is mother. There must be the period of fertility. If the mother is not fertile, then it doesn't take place. If the father is impotent, there is no condition. If the father and mother do not have sex, there is no condition. There must also be a Gandhabba, a life that is waiting to be born. You see, that is why a lot of couples, if they can have sex, both of them are fertile, but there is no being waiting to be born in this condition. So no life takes place. So, but when all these conditions are present and a life does take place at the moment of conception, it is a life. No abortion after that. But scientifically, if you prevent any of those 4 conditions, that's okay. You understand? So if you practice birth control, you are what in effect you are doing is through birth control, you are preventing the taking place of a Gandhabba coming and taking life. No sin involved. So birth control is not wrong according to Buddhism. Abortion is from moment 1. The moment all these 4 conditions get together and a life takes place, no more. Then you are as guilty as murder if you take. Because the intention, there is taking of a life, there is actually reduction of a life. Okay. All the conditions are fulfilled. Getting late, miss? Yes? We should make that the last one.
Actually, sometimes I get a little bit confused on being registered to marry or being married and staying together. What are the differences? Can we call register married in inverted commas or staying together in inverted commas or married as married in inverted commas?
Married without inverted commas.
Right, this question, sometimes we have to look back into the ancient Indian society when this precept was formed or given by the Buddha. In those days, in India, sometimes in the very rural areas, there was no set marriage ceremony as such. And so, the man comes to the woman and asks, hey, you want to be my wife? She said, okay lah, nothing else to do. So, in that way, once the bond is formed, there is already a marriage. Right? In the same way, that if you have a relationship, that is, you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, right? And you have an understanding between the two of you, right? And you are still not married, okay? There is an intention to get married, but you are still not married. If you are still not married then, but you have sexual relationships with somebody else, right, thinking, oh, I'm not married, I can still do whatever I want, you have still broken the 3rd precept. Because it is not a matter of legality. It doesn't cover legal terms, but it covers spiritual terms. Once you have the understanding, it is like the heart and the heart understanding each other. And if you misplace that trust, mislay that trust, right, you are actually, in fact, deceiving the other person. It means also you have broken the 3rd precept, regardless of whether you are married in the eyes of the law or not, right? But nowadays, like our sister has asked, sometimes, like I said, in ancient India, right, they didn't have this full marriage ceremony. So nowadays, what we can take as a registration, that is, if you go in front of the registrar of marriages, right, you can take that as, in fact, being already married. But of course, in our society, especially in Chinese society, the registration is not accepted as being the real marriage, the real ceremony. It's until you have the real Chinese ceremony that they will accept you as being in their family, right? That is, the older folks will accept you as a son or a daughter. So in this case, you have to decide for yourself. You have to think, right, what exactly to do. Because some people, right, they have already been registered, right? They are legally married. But the older folks, that is, the parents, don't recognize them as being married. And they have a baby, that is, they have a child. Now, in those kind of circumstances, unwholesome mental states, that is, unwanted anger and all kinds of terrible mental states arise because of that. And so this is what you have to think about, in fact, before you actually indulge in any kind of a physical relationship, yeah, as such. So in fact, I would like to say that it is not just legal, getting married legally. It is the understanding between two persons. I don't know if Uncle Vijay? Huh?
Understanding and commitment.
Yes, understanding and commitment. Once you say to the other person, right, I am yours or you are mine, you cannot break that. Even though you have no ring on the finger, right, and you haven't signed any document. It is binding. Until the day you say, both of you say, I think we have to walk our own separate paths. Okay? Okay, let's have a quick last question.
Brother Tan, I just couldn't get you, but anyway, I have one very simple question to ask you. Is sex before marriage breaking the precept?
No. Sex before marriage, as I said, Buddhism does not commit itself to right and wrong in a modern civilization sense. Now, sex in itself before marriage or after marriage, because marriage is an artificial man-made thing. Okay? So before or after is not wrong. What is wrong is the intention behind that, the lust. If you have made a commitment that you are, this is in happy married life, so I'm quite safe. If you have made a commitment to this girl that you will honor her and respect her, and there's mutual respect, and they have sex, that is quite all right. But if I have sex with her and then say, okay, tomorrow I run away, you pay for it. You understand? Marriage, the wearing of a ring is all man-made. It is not protected by religion. What you need to do is examine your commitment, your trueness to each other, between understanding adults. Quite okay. Read Happy Married Life, $2.70, one copy. If you get married, we give it to you free.
Thank you, Uncle Vijaya and Brother Siang. So it's getting late now. It's about 12 already. So can you please all fold your palms together and say sadhu, sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Uncle Vijaya and Brother Siang. But before all, I have some announcements to make. Could you all please just be seated for just a minute? I have some announcement to make. First of all, Buddhism for intermediate level. You can get the registration forms from the counter. The enrollment is limited, about 30 only. Cost is about $10 for part 1. There are 2 parts actually, part 1 and part 2. And it will start on the 1st of October, which is a Thursday at 7:45 at Wisma Suridama here. And it will stretch on for 3 months. Then the part 2 will start next year. And it's also $10. And we will be using the books based on the Buddha and his teachings. So if you intend to take up this course, the intermediate level, please get this book, The Buddha and His Teachings, and you can register at the counter. Choir practice. For those who are in the choir, please assemble here now, 12 noon. Oh, it will be at the pagoda. So please kindly proceed to the pagoda. Asuka play for the Malam Surabhuti is 21st of November. Actors are needed, so if you can act and you like to help out in this Asuka play, do kindly come for the Asuka play at 3 p.m. here. Orientation program. Today we have an orientation program organized by the BMS Youth Section. And for those who have signed in, or for those who have not signed, you can get the forms from the counter. And you are supposed to assemble at the kitchen. Telematch, please be on the lookout, is on the 21st of October. Floral arrangement is on the 27th of September and the 4th of October at 12 p.m. You can get forms also from the 2 p.m. Yes, at the counter. You register at the counter. Marjorie Falia is organizing a weekend game. Accommodation, food, transport are all provided, and you'll be at Kuala Selangor. Date 4th and 5th of October. It is a Saturday afternoon. You are supposed to assemble here, and then you will come back on Sunday evening. Players are needed for the games. Netball, 9 players. Tug of war, 10 players. The person in charge is Mr. Saraf, and if you are interested in this game, do kindly register at the counter as well.